Welcome to Mixed Media Friday. Today I'm going to create an altered canvas. So I'm going to grab my Liquitex matte gel medium and I'm going to apply it all over my little canvas. And I actually didn't take the dimensions of this canvas, but it is fairly small, so it's probably about, I'm going to say 4 by 4 maybe. And this is just a napkin that I had in my stash. And so all I'm doing is applying it like a collage style and bunching it up and making sure that, some of the edges have the kind of the rougher the edges and the more bumpy the better. It just creates a whole lot of dimension, and when I start applying other mediums like paint and gesso and so forth, you'll start to see it really picks up a lot of those beautiful folds, which is kind of the effect that I'm going for. And I don't really care too much about the back. And the side I'll be applying another little piece there in a minute, but I'm not caring too much about the back because it's going to be hanging anyhow. So I just care more about the sides and the front. And so I just applied a little piece that was left over. And what's so beautiful about napkins is that when you remove the backing of them, they're very thin and they're really easy to play with. This is just some Liquitex gesso, and I'm applying it with a rough brush, and you can now start to see the ridges of, when I folded it. So that looks so much better. So that's what I'm doing right now, and I'm trying to do it with a dry brush. Try not to do this technique with a wet brush. You might not quite get that same effect. And really what I'm going for, I really don't want that super bright pink. I'm kind of really trying to mute it down and start to add a little bit of layers. This is Golden Cobalt Teal and Quinacridone, I can't even pronounce it, something gold, and some water. And I'm just using my fingers and water. So I wet the canvas first with a little bit of water, and now I'm just blending it with my fingers throughout. This is my absolute favorite color, this cobalt teal. So just spraying and then with my fingers. You could do this with a brush, but I do find that this technique works a little bit better using your fingers, which is why I'm doing it. So now I'm just going to dry this up, and then I'm going to take that gold, and it's kind of like a brownie gold, and it kind of creates a little bit more of a vintage look, more of a distressed type look. And I didn't like it. It kind of turned out a little bit more yellow than I wanted to, so I'm re-adding a little bit of teal just so that it blends a little bit better. And then now I'm just adding a little bit of white gesso just to tone it down a little bit more. So really it's all about playing and blending and making sure that it looks nice. And next, I'm drying it really, really good. But then now you're going to see I'm taking just a foam brush, and I'm kind of doing like a blending technique with the foam brush. It creates a little bit of a different effect, and I really like that. If you have any sponge, that'll work. I just had the foam brush in front of me, which is what I'm using. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my hot glue gun, and fine tip works best for this technique. And it's probably a little bit hard to see, but what I'm doing is I'm actually creating a tree with branches out of the hot glue gun. And what's so great about the hot glue gun, especially if you have a fine tip, is that because of the imperfection of the hot glue, it's not like perfectly straight every line, then it kind of mimics, branches, right? Because branches are kind of curvy and bumpy, which is kind of the effect that the hot glue kind of gives. And so I'm kind of going around my canvas and over the top. I kind of want it to be like mimicking like a vine per se. And so that's what I'm doing right here. So on the side and a little bit on the top. And now what I want to do is I want to apply a little bit of gesso. And the reason that I'm applying gesso over top of the glue is because I'm going to be adding some paint over top. And when you add paint over top, it'll kind of bubble a little bit. It won't quite stick to it perfectly, but if you add the gesso, because it's a primer, then you'll find that your paint will stick a little bit better. So that's what I'm doing right here, and just applying gesso throughout, so you'll be able to see the veins a little bit better. And you can see how cool and bumpy they are throughout. Next, I'm going to grab my Lumiere paint, and I love these. And I'm just grabbing a kind of like a firm, stumpy little brush to apply this, and it does have a kind of a shimmer to it, which is really, really pretty. And some spaces I'm going a little bit darker than others. And as I go along, I find that there's a lot of little glue hairs, I guess, along the way. So you'll find out if you do this technique that you'll have to just kind of pull them off every once in a while. And so I didn't do the whole process on camera, but here it is, the end process, and it looks pretty cool. So that's all done. And next I'm going to take Green Gold by Golden, and this actually happened to be one of my little sample pieces that I got somewhere. And I'm just going to create, with a very thin brush, I'm going to create some leaves throughout my tree. And what I like about this paint is that it's a little bit transparent, so it's not super, overpowering when you're creating something like this. You can kind of still see the a little bit of the colors underneath. So I did it throughout, so I wasn't going to bore you to death doing leaves all over the trees. So that's that piece, and then I'm going to take some Shabby Chic Treasures by Ingvild Bohm, and these are Prima. They're absolutely fabulous, it's cute little birdies, and I'm just going to apply one on the tree. Just fits perfectly. And then this is just some gelatos by Faber-Castell Design Memory Craft, and it's really easy to blend. And I'm just grabbing a little bit of what was left over of the paint, just to give the bird a little bit of two-tone dimension. Later on, you'll see me apply a little bit more gesso over the top of it because I didn't quite like it. These are very old vintage Prima, and they used to come in this cute little jars. And then I'm taking some Lindy Stamp Gang sprays, and I'm applying a little bit of the gold right in the center of the flower and just kind of allowing them to bleed. And then I'm taking the pink and spraying all of them. And I did that off camera so I wouldn't bore you again. And then just applying some Say It in Crystals Scent Hers on all the flowers. And using one of my clear stamps, again by Prima, and some archival ink, and this is Aquamarine. And the reason I like to use archival ink when I'm creating anything mixed media is because I know that if I do apply water or something like that later down the road, it's not going to run. So this just adds a little bit more dimension. And then now with the hot glue gun, I'm just applying the flowers throughout my tree. I wasn't quite convinced that I liked the flowers at first. I thought maybe I had ruined it, but later on I'm just going to be kind of fluffing them up a little bit, and so they look a little bit better. And one of the centers fell off there. So if you don't dry your flowers, sometimes I'm a little bit impatient and I don't dry my flowers all the way, and so the centers tend to fall off sometimes. So just make sure you dry your flowers. And so here you see me, I'm fluffing them up with my fingers a little bit to make them a little bit more realistic so they're not so flat on the tree. They're kind of a little bit more dimensional, I guess. And it really makes a difference, especially when you see it in person, to have them fluffed up rather than just flat on the canvas. And then there I go, applying a little bit of gesso, white gesso on the bird. Next, I'm going to take some Wishes and Dream stamp, and I'm going to take the Dreams Come True, and I am going to use some black archival ink. And you guys know me already, I'm not a big block user, so I'm just stamping it as is. And then it didn't quite stamp perfectly, so I'm just taking like a liner pen and just going over the lines a little bit just to darken it up, just so that you can see some of the, there we go, you can see it perfectly right there. So there is one last step to this canvas, which actually a couple. Right now I'm taking Old Rose, which is the chalk inks by Ingvild Bohm and Prima, and I'm just kind of going around all the edges of the flowers, and it'll make them pop just a little bit. Gives them a little bit more of a two-tone effect. And I did that throughout my canvas. Next, I'm going to take a white chalk ink again by Ingvild and Prima, and I'm just kind of going around all the edges, and it just tones it down a little bit. almost blends everything together. I'm just going to take my gel medium again and applying it around my words. And I'm going to take some crystal glitter. And I'm not a big glitter girl, but I don't know. Lately I have been. So I'm just taking a little of a stipple type brush and pouncing it on the places that I put the gel medium. Just to give it a subtle glitter. Just subtle. I just kind of put it randomly throughout my page, not everywhere. And I'm sorry, I'm a little bit off frame there. Sometimes when I'm creating, it's kind of hard to see the where the camera angle is. So just applying gel medium and then pouncing some of that glitter right on there. And that's pretty much it. So I really thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial and maybe try one of your own. And I'd love to see your finished process. So please, by all means, share it with me. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.